You're listening to the OCD Stories podcast, hosted by me, Stuart Ralph. The OCD Stories is a podcast dedicated to raising awareness and understanding around obsessive-compulsive symptoms. I do this through interviewing inspired therapists, psychologists, and people who have experienced OCD. Welcome to the OCD Stories. And welcome to episode 466 of the podcast. And in this one, I got back on Jack. Jack kindly shared his story with us in episode 440. So if you haven't checked that out, feel free to go do so. But you don't need to for context for this episode. I think Jack shares enough context if you haven't heard his story that this episode should still be interesting and useful for you. I got Jack back on because one of the things I really liked about his story was his commitment to the home practice or homework, to understanding and implementing the skills between his therapy sessions. And that's always impressed me about Jack. So I wanted to get him on to explore this in a bit more detail, his mindset around this and other things. But in particular, we talk about his therapy, including exposure and response prevention therapy and acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT for short, as well as compassion-focused therapy. We discuss his approach to doing home practice and practicing skills outside of session. Jack recaps some of the ACT skills he learned, the importance of practicing often, repetition and consistency, and much more. And thank you to NoCD for supporting the podcast. NoCD offers effective and convenient therapy available in the US and outside the US. To find out more about NoCD, their therapy plans, if they currently take your insurance, or to download their free app, head to go.treatmyocd.com/the OCD stories, or the link will be in the episode description. Thank you to all of our patrons for supporting our work. To sign up to our Patreon and to check out the other benefits you'll receive as a patron, please see the link in the show notes. So thank you to Jack for coming back on and sharing his view on this. I really, really appreciate it. This is called part 1 because there will be a part 2 next week with Johnny Say, his therapist, who's going to give his therapist side of things. He would have heard Jack's episode and he'll give his take on what Jack says in this episode. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, thank you to Jack. Really appreciate it as always. Thank you to you guys for listening. It means a lot. And without further ado, here is Jack. Welcome back to the show, Jack.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Stu.
Yeah, it's good to have you back on. And for regular listeners of the podcast, you were on probably like a month ago, maybe.
Yeah, probably a bit longer than that, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, a month ago, maybe a bit longer than what we're recording now. When this comes out, it may be a couple months. But so just an update, how you've been since we last spoke.
Yeah, been good. Been lots going on. Obviously still carrying on with my therapy journey. Went to OCD Game Changers. Was it last week? I think it was the week before, I believe. Now, was it 2 weeks ago?
I think it was the beginning or about the 10th of November, something like that.
Yeah, time goes quick, doesn't it? Yeah, which was an experience. Went on stage for the first time. Told my story as I did on here. And it was really positive feedback, really positive experience. And it's good to be with like-minded people. It's been good.
Yeah, you did really good. It's always terrifying sharing your story in person for the first time.
Yeah.
But yeah, you did really good.
Yeah, I was on the way there. I was in the back of the car, and I was like, I can't remember. I feel like I'm having a mind blank, and it's your story, it's your life, but the anxiety and going on stage was quite overwhelming. But it's about going towards your values, using the skills that I've been given. Gone on there and did it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and I'm glad you said use the skills you've been given. That, going on stage for you, I'm sure wasn't OCD. It's just general anxiety and fear of public speaking, but you were still using the same skills for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the morning, I kind of got up, did my normal routine, but then I would kind of did some mental rehearsal, which was a new one that I've been doing where, picture myself going to the venue. How would I feel? What kind of anxiety? Giving some space for that anxiety. Giving room for that. It's okay. Being a bit self-compassion, being kind to myself. But also drop an anchor. I did drop an anchor as well. Noticing my thoughts and feelings. giving space for the stick within my stomach and the rumination, bring myself back into my body and into the room. So really trying to ground myself and allow and realize and let myself be anxious, but normal and what's expected when you go on stage.
Yeah.
It didn't make it so daunting, try and give myself a little bit of space between the anxiety and me. Even if it kept coming back, because it's understandable you go on stage for the first time, but it just gives you that little bit of space. So it's good.
Nice, well done. Well, yeah, I'm glad you did it. And yeah, I'm sure there'll hopefully be more speaking opportunities in the future. And all right, so today obviously we're going to talk about something that really stood out. I mean, I knew it before you and I chatted, but on the last podcast. But what really stood out for me in that episode was the work ethic between sessions. How diligently you did practice the home practice or homework, whatever you want to call it. And I'm sure a lot of that was you were doing more than what Johnny was suggesting, So we're going to get into that today of like why you were able to do that. And some of that might come down to personality, but we can talk about that. But I guess before that, so I think you obviously said in the last episode, Johnny is your therapist, Johnny Say.
Yeah.
And so I guess just to recap the type of work you did with Johnny, just so people are aware, like maybe when you talk about certain things, they've got a background.
Yes, the type of work I do with Johnny is acceptance and commitment therapy, and ERP, but the ERP is kind of intertwined with the acceptance and commitment therapy. A lot of self-compassion, but I do really believe that the self-compassion is a vital ingredient in with the acceptance and commitment therapy and the ERP. And obviously I know we'll go into more detail, but I've almost been given like a toolkit, which is dropping anchor, diffusion, urge surfing, workability, dipping in and out of the stream, and values-based exposures. And those are the toolkits that I've been given that I do in my therapy session, but I also do at home on my own in between sessions as well.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And I guess maybe we're probably going to think more about the home practice of ACT skills today. Obviously, you can bring in how you did any exposure homework as well. But I guess for the ACT skills, because a lot of the listeners will be familiar with ERP on some level, but with some of the ACT skills you've mentioned, what would you say, like, not to put you on the spot, but the point of the ACT skills are? Like, what was Johnny trying to help you achieve through applying, like dropping anchor, dipping in and out the stream, urge surfing? What was he trying to do in your mind, I guess?
Well, I guess that each one's got its own different. It's got its own purpose. So for like dropping anchor, if you have like a ruminating, or you're really anxious, or you just you're inside yourself and you can't calm your head straight. Dropping anchor is exactly what it is. You take a bit of pause. If I'm out, I'm at the gym and I'm ruminating, I think, okay, I'll notice my thoughts and feelings. Just allow them and notice them, give a bit of space. So then I can name them. I'm having an intrusive thought about someone in the gym, or I'm worried about this, and then I can basically bring myself back and notice the anxiety, give room for it. I can then bring myself back into my body, so I can move my body a little bit. So you come out your mind into your body, and then you can look around the space that you're in. So if I'm at the gym or outside, I can say, I can notice some trees. I can, the leaves are on the floor, or I notice that house with the tiles on. The more you describe what you're looking at, the more you bring yourself into the present moment. Because sometimes it's easy to say you're noticing what's going on, but you're still in your head. If you describe it, you really are bringing yourself into the moment. And sometimes you have to do that multiple times. Sometimes you can just do it once, and you've got yourself and give yourself a bit of space. For home practice, I tend to do that as almost like a bit of a meditation. So in the morning, there's a 10-minute, there's a 6-minute, and a 3-minute. recording that I've been given. I normally do the 10-minute one if I have enough time. And again, I'll just get on my cushion in my bedroom, bit of space for me, 10 minutes in the morning, and I'll just look at my mind. What's my mind doing? Am I planning the day? Am I worried about some OCD? Am I thinking about what I've got to do next week? But you can just not try and control it. You can just observe your mind, what's going on there, and then drop that. Again, notice what you're feeling. Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling worried? And name it. Am I feeling happy? Am I feeling joyful? But you kind of name your emotion of what you're feeling inside, and then bring yourself back to your body. So again, I'll roll my shoulders, I might stretch my arm a little bit, and then the process is then notice the room. So I might say light switch on the wall with 2 pins in it, skirting boards, white skirting boards, and you do that process. And with 10-minute one, you go through that about 3 times. And actually, when you've done that, you've given yourself a bit of space. You're allowing the space in your mind. You're allowing the emotions inside of you. You're grounding yourself back into the present moment rather than being lost in your thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. Yeah, really good description. And I think, Dr. Stephen Hayes, one of the founders of ACT, like his book, Get Out of Your Mind and Into Your Life. I think that title alone, like you articulated it perfectly, and that book title kind of sums it up as well. Of these skills are often like trying to get us out of our mind and back into our life and out of the story or narrative of OCD, because that's what it is, right? We're not in the here and now; we're in fiction land.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really, really good description. And maybe we'll talk about urge serving and dipping out the stream as and when we come to it. The other thing that came to me there is what you're saying with those audio is learning to become the observer of your mind and like step back and watch it, but not in like a compulsive way of, as we sometimes do with OCD, of internal check-in. Oh my God, am I still anxious? So I still having those thoughts? Obviously that's a compulsion, but you're doing it more of curiosity, right? Of just watching your brain and seeing what it does as opposed to fear.
I'm not having the expectation that when I do this, it's going to disappear, because then, I'm not doing it religiously as a compulsion. I'm doing it because, these tools have been given to me by a therapist, which has, had OCD himself, and he's said, he's done these tools and, how they've helped him. So I'm doing them, knowing that if I do them, that they're going to help me. It's almost like rewiring your mind a little bit. But it's about the acceptance of, okay, I do drop in anchor. I notice that my mind is whizzing around with rumination or obsessive thoughts. And I might notice that I'm anxious. But just by noticing that you're anxious, it takes away the power a little bit, but it doesn't mean it eradicates it. So I accept that actually at the end of that practice, I may still be anxious, but I've given a little bit more room for it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does make perfect sense. And is that something I notice with my clients? Obviously, I work with a younger demographic age group, I should say. And sometimes they do struggle with the idea of, did you do drop in anchor? Look, really young kids, actually, often they come back and they say, oh, no, it really did help. And I can see it in session when I do it with them. They really engage with it really quickly. But then maybe teens, late teens, early 20s, they often say, how did it go? And they say, oh, it didn't work. And I'm like, okay, why didn't it work? And it's usually one or two things. They only tried it once. And they were looking for an outcome. They were looking to feel better or whatever it was, or the thoughts to go away. And of course, what you're saying here is you're not going in with that expectation. You're going in with, I've been told this is a good strategy. I'm going to trust the process. And much like, you go to the gym, right? And you know that if you go to the gym once, lift weights, you're not going to become Arnold Schwarzenegger. It takes years and years of dedication. It takes commitment, right? And years and years and years, and good genetics also if you want to be him. But where am I going with this? Yeah, you don't just lift weights once and expect to be Mr. Olympia, or even athletic.
No, and that's, to be honest, that was the example I was going to give. Look, I do go to the gym. I do a lot of endurance things. I know that actually it's practice, right? It's practice. I can't expect to go and run a half marathon and just run once because I'm going to be gassed out. I'm not going to be able to complete that race. I need to be doing it multiple times, to to bring my fitness levels up, to bring my my fitness up, and I'll be able to then complete a race with these tools. I talk about neuroplasticity, right? I know that I can't expect us to go to session on a Wednesday, do something once, and then it's all going to be better. I know that actually I've had OCD for 30 years. My brain has been worked in this mechanism for over 30 years. To kind of rewind that and have a different method of thinking, I know that I've got to do it repetitively in a way which isn't a compulsion. It's something which I enjoy doing. I see the benefits of it. So I know actually to create a new pathway in my mind and a new way of thinking, that you need to be able to do this work and try and enjoy it at the same time. That's why I kind of like doing it sometimes a bit of meditation, because it is 10 minutes for myself, but I'm still doing my OCD kind of homework as we call it. But in the moment, you'll notice that actually when you are out in the field as such, and in your day-to-day and OCD comes up, that because you've been doing this over and over again, it automatically goes into the new way of thinking. So, if I'm out in the moment, I'll notice that thought, give a bit of room for it, and bring myself back into the present moment. It happens a lot quicker when you're doing the work a lot more at home, or in between sessions.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And did you, the moment Johnny showed you, say, dropping anchor, did you fully buy in that? Yeah, I don't expect it to work straight away. I've got to put in the effort. Or was it more that you did initially think it might be like a miracle thing? Or
No, I mean, something that I went through with Johnny at the very beginning was, acceptance and commitment therapy is obviously about acceptance. And I think people go into therapy and might say, okay, I want 10 sessions. At the end of 10 sessions, I want to be cured. I want to be fixed. You're already doomed to fail, in my opinion. I've gone in because, we're all different human beings. Everything takes different amount of times, and it's an ongoing journey. I've gone with the mindset of, I accept that this takes as long as it takes. If it takes me 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or actually if I have to do these skills for every single day of the rest of my life, then so be it. I accept that, and I'm happy to do that. And I think with that mindset, actually, the paradoxical effect is that they do work better, because you haven't got that expectation. Right, I need to do this dropping anchor or this diffusion. It's got to work. And I think sometimes that will make it so it doesn't work, because you're being too harsh on yourself, and you're being harsh on the process. Whereas if you've got a little bit more acceptance that it takes time, it takes repetition, and take away the expectation that it's going to work instantly. Because what you start to notice is the more you do these things, when you start noticing, actually my mindset has changed a little bit, and that's with a lot of other things like like going through doorways, for instance. A threshold was a massive one for me, and I couldn't go through a threshold before I go up to it. I start having an intrusive thought, don't think about this, and because of the tools that I've given, I can walk through doorways now and don't think about anything. But it's not until after a bit of time you think, wow, okay, these must be working, because I'm not doing these compulsions anymore.
I just went through that doorway and didn't do anything. And I guess what you're saying there brings up the gym metaphor again for me, or analogy of, if you go to the gym and every time you go to the gym you're looking in the mirror, like how your body's changed and all of that, there's a good chance you're going to get disheartened, because you won't see any change day to day, week in, week out. But if maybe you look every month or 2 months, you're going to see a difference in your body. And it's kind of like with dropping anchor and these other skills. If every day you're like, okay, am I better? Am I, less OCD today after doing dropping anchor? You're going to get disheartened, and then you're not going to want to do it, rather than trusting the plan, the strategy, seeing it through, and then assessing it 2 months down the line. Am I stronger? So with the homework, if we go back to maybe when you first started working with Johnny, in those first 3 months, what would we have seen if we saw you at home doing the home practice? What types of home practice were you doing in those early days? And how much were you doing, and when were you doing it, and all of that stuff?
Okay. I mean, I have been in therapy for 2 years, so 18 months to 2 years. So it has been a long process, and so right at the beginning, I kind of just started actioning them straight away, if I'm honest, on a daily basis. You know, and when I was doing them, like for comfort of the people, they felt like they weren't working. I was doing them, I wasn't seeing any benefits to start with. And I think that's important, is because, people might give up on the first one and think, well, actually, I've done this now for a few weeks and it's not working, or for a few months. It does take a lot, repetition, repetition, and then it starts to work. But so the homework, values-based exposure, which would be the ERP for me. And my OCD is obviously, it's about intrusive thoughts, and it can be intrusive thoughts, whilst having sex or masturbation or things like that. Not really something we can bring on in sessions. So what we've done is something where I will sit down. Values-based exposure for me will be, okay, whatever image I've been trying to avoid in the day, which would normally be doing hundreds or thousands of whatever it is, of different compulsions in the day, purposely bring that image up, so I can sit down, purposely bring up an image that is, upsetting for me, that I'd normally do lots of compulsions, and let it be there and allow it to be there. So instead of trying to push it away, we're bringing it up on purpose. And that alone is quite powerful, because you spent your whole life trying to almost like push it away, and now your mind's saying, well, actually, let's bring it up, let's just accept it and allow it to be there. And that's quite powerful. But then, while you let it be there, well, notice what thoughts you're having. Okay, that is bringing up a bit of anxiety, that is bringing up a bit of disgust, a bit of shame. Well, notice that shame, have a little bit of compassion for that shame, and talk to yourself in a compassionate way. And then do a values-based activity. So, if it's out in the real world, that could be maybe having sex, or that could be reading a book, or it could be, carrying on with a conversation, or whatever it may be. But what I can tend to do is I'll bring in an image of, so I'm having a conversation with somebody else, or something I want to think about. And sometimes at the beginning it'd be hard for me to switch that thought process, because the OCD thought will keep popping in. But that's where you have to diffuse, notice that image, and engage in what you want to think about. That was a really important one for me. To move forward with my OCD, because it was instead of doing lots of compulsions to try and push away this image because it was disgusting for me, or about shame or something like that, it was about learning to allow the thought to be there, no matter what time of the day it was, whether I'm at work, whether I'm with my children, whether I'm at the gym, whenever I'm having sex with my partner, or whatever it is. It's just an image. It's about allowing it to be there, accepting it is what it is. It's an intrusive image. And it starts to lose its power. And the paradoxical effect, as we say again, is actually it stops happening. And the more I was trying to bring on a negative image that I didn't want, as the process went on, I noticed that I would start thinking about other stuff anyway, automatically, because it was not becoming so scary for me anymore. You could think about the worst, most disgusting thing ever, but actually, because you're using your skills, you almost just start thinking about the good stuff anyway. So that's been a really good one for me, values-based exposure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And with values-based exposure, were you like avoiding anything that you had to start moving towards, or anything like that?
No, I haven't. Avoidance for me, I haven't really avoided. But my OCD, I've been quite strong of trying to push forward with things like, my POCD, I've got 3 kids. I haven't avoided doing anything with my kids. Intrusive thoughts around sex, I haven't really avoided having sex and things like that. I've always just done lots of compulsion so it doesn't happen. But actually, it's about allowing these thoughts and feelings to be there at any point, whether you're, spending time with your kids, or with a partner, or whatever. Because avoidance is a massive. Well, it's OCD, right? That's what it is. And these skills give you the ability to be able to move forward in a values-based thing. So, what's your values? I want to be a good dad. I want to pay my kids, take my kids out. I want to be a good partner. I want to be able to be my partner and stuff. So, it's about moving forward with your values.
Absolutely. And there, where you were talking about sort of bringing the images on that you didn't want to see or think about, you found just dipping in and out of the stream as a skill. Is that what you were practicing?
Yeah, so dipping in out the stream, yeah. I do that more for rumination. I mean, the
Okay.
dipping out the stream, I have done that in practice, but at home, there's two methods. So to start with, we bring on something good. So, okay, I can ruminate about, oh, I'm going to take the kids to a cinema the weekend. It's going to be great. That's going to make me happy. It's going to make me feel joyful. And then drop it. And it's just about dropping that and then bring yourself back into the body and look about in the room. So you can do that on a good bit of rumination and then move on to the bad or, the OCD or negative rumination. So I've been going through a horrific court case, child family court case, and I've been using it for that and for my OCD. So I think, okay, I'm going to be in court, I'm going to be really anxious, etc., etc. This happened, that's happening, and then drop it, and then the uncertainty, and then just bring yourself back into the body. Notice how I'm feeling, and back into my room. And that's the same with the OCD. It's like, you can think about the rumination. Okay, I've got to go back after that compulsion. Or if I don't do the compulsion, I'm going to have a secondary spike, and I think it was more, But with if being able to drop it without having an answer and moving forward is quite powerful as well. And that's been a really good one for me. It's like with OCD, you want all your compulsions to be safe, you want all your thoughts to be safe, you want all the answers, you want it all to be safe, secure. With dipping out the stream, it's about actually ruminating about something OCD wise and then dropping it without any answers, having to deal with that anxiety and then being able to just move on with the day and giving room for that anxiety and bring yourself back into the room.
Nice. Yeah, good description. And with the more values-based exposure of bringing the image on, what was the process of that? What does that look like for you?
Okay, let's just say, sexual orientation, OCD, say you at the gym, you have an intrusive thought about a guy, so then instead of like my OCD would normally then be about, okay, all my compulsions would be about not thinking about this person and trying to almost replace it with a female that I'm attracted to. But actually, it's just about let's not do all the compulsions. Let's not do all these things and try and push that out of our mind. Because the more we try and push out of our mind, don't think of a white polar bear. We're going to think of a white polar bear, right? So let's just bring that image on of that person, whether it's POCD child or man. Let's bring that image on and stick with that image. How does that make you feel? Okay, it's making me feel a little bit anxious, making me feel a little bit this, a little bit that. But it's about allowing it to be there. And it doesn't have to be stuck on the forefront of your mind. It's almost about allowing it to sit at the back of your mind while you're engaging with what you want to engage with, be that whatever.
Nice.
And it, like I said, it makes, when you spend a lifetime trying to avoid these images and then you're purposely bringing them into your mind, it just takes away the power, and it's what is it? It's an intrusive thought. It's okay to be there. We can't control it. And the more you allow that thought to be there and kind of drift off into the background, and you're able to continue forth with whatever value, thing that you want to do, repetition of that is actually those thoughts stop happening in the first place and the intrusions stop happening in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, bring it on. As Dr. Stephen Phillipson would say, like, show our brain irrelevance, that this signal is not important to me. Yeah. So, again, in those first 3 months, like, how much were you doing these skills? Either values-based exposures, dipping in that stream, dropping anchor. Were you picking like one a day? Were you doing multiple a day? How would it be? 10 minutes, 20 minutes? Would it be several times a day? What was that looking like for you?
I do one of the I do one of them a day. So I'll always do. I say one of them a day. So there's certain tools that I'll do out in the day. So while most of it comes up, I'll do them. Excuse me. But I will always sit down in the morning and have 10 minutes to myself, where I will do either drop an anchor, dipping in and out of the stream, a values-based exposure, or diffusion. And I will make sure that I do a 10-minute practice each and every single morning. I've done that every day for 2 years now. If I can't do 10 minutes, there's a 6-minute or there's a 3-minute. If I'm pushed on time, if I miss one, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. You know, I've gone on holiday for a week and not done any for a week. You know, I don't want to make it a compulsion. But before I were given new skills, when I came into therapy, I would meditate anyway. So I'd meditate 10 minutes in the morning, I'd meditate 10 minutes in the night, and I found that helpful. So I've kind of replaced my meditation with doing these skills.
Yeah.
Out in the day, you know, when my OCD was bad, I'd say that I was using these skills just in the moments throughout the day. Urge surfing has been a massive one, for sure. And I think urge surfing is a big one out in the field, to say, when you know, out in the day, because, you know, let's use threshold as an example again. My anxiety would go through the roof. I'm going to go for that threshold. Don't have an intrusive thought. You know, think of a safe number, safe image. But actually, by saying that and doing that, and having that anxiety before I go to the threshold, I'd ultimately have a bad image as I went through there. But where the urge surfing comes in is about, okay, you've gone through that doorway, you've had an intrusive image, it's disgusting, or it makes you ashamed, or whatever it is. It's about having, instead of going back and putting that compulsion right, pushing forward and carrying on with the day. And then actually my anxiety would go through the roof. My chest would feel like it's pounding. I get hot, I get sweaty. My secondary spike would come in. Actually, the thought that was maybe just an image of someone's face would then turn into a more graphical sexual image, because the secondary spike's going, you think you're not going to go and do that, mate? Actually, you go, here's a worse image. And if you don't go and put it right, you're going to think this forever. This is what was going through my mind. But actually, the urge to go back and putting it right then is like, shit, I need to go and put this compulsion right, else it's forever. I think that is the crucial part of recovery, because every time you don't go back and you still have that urge of anxiety, because it will subside. It doesn't feel like it in the moment, but it will subside, whether that takes an hour, 2 hours, the rest of the day, it subsides. And then you don't end up having to go and do that compulsion. It's almost one to you and one down for OCD. And it's about that rewiring of the brain again. And the more you do that, you're telling your mind that actually that thought isn't a threat. That threshold isn't a threat. And actually you can just continue through to the point where you keep doing that repetitively. Like I said, I can walk through doorways and I don't even think about it anymore. It's completely gone. But even if I did have an intrusive thought, I wouldn't care, because I'd just use my skills. I'd urge surf, and eventually it just drift away. So I do think urge surfing is a very important part of the recovery process with these skills.
Yeah, and Johnny himself said on an episode I published not too long ago, he said with his clients, I think he says to some of them, he tries to get them to have 10 of those moments where they're able to ride it out and able to see what their brain was doing. And when you have 10 of those, you realize, oh, this works. So the goal is just get 10 of those. And that's kind of what you're saying there, in those moments when you don't go back and do it, you ride it out. Yeah. It's scary, but eventually it passes. And then when you've had enough of those reference points, you know in future you can keep going, because, well, I've done this 10 times before and I know it's gone. So this is going to be no different.
Yeah. It is scary, and I think that's maybe the bit where some people will struggle. And I speak to people in the WhatsApp group, we have a Zoom call, and sometimes they can't get past that point. And living with OCD is traumatic. Living with OCD is scary. No matter what the theme is. And I think that people with OCD are brave human beings, but unfortunately, you almost have to just be a little bit more braver and almost going towards that thing that you feared your whole life with OCD. It's scary, because you almost got to face the beast as such and actually keep pushing forward. So urge surfing is definitely a difficult one, but it's I think it's one of the most important ones, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, like, I don't, for anyone listening, I don't want to be putting you on a pedestal, though I am, really proud of how you've applied the skills, and hopefully you are of yourself, and I know Johnny is, because everyone's different, right? Everyone has their own background, upbringing, experiences, and But so I don't want to make it sound so simple. And as you're saying, some people you speak to really struggle with this, being able to ride it out. But I think if we boil it down to a skill that can be practiced, it might take someone longer, but I think the message here is they can get there. And I think that's the hopeful message. And you know, what you're saying is you were doing 10 minutes a day of scheduled homework.
Yeah.
And then you would ad hoc throughout the day applying the skills.
Yes.
Because you have to, right? So it's not like Johnny or you said, I'm going to do 2 hours a day, because that's unrealistic. You know, I mean, even if you don't have anything else going on with your day, 2 hours of anything homework wise, no one wants to do that, or hardly anyone. So I think it's a nice message of just that small amount, but consistency. Again, maybe this is cheesy, but it reminds me of the river. The river beats the rock, not through strength, but through persistence. Over hundreds of thousands of years, it erodes that rock away because it's consistent, you know? And I think that's, obviously recovery isn't thousands of years, but, you know, just consistency, I think is a key part of your story. And I guess, you know, so one thing also that sticks out in your story is you are, you know, you ran your own business. It was very successful for a long time. You clearly get up and go. I know you're now training as a therapist, and you're going to be incredible at that, no doubt, when you qualify and in your training, obviously, because I know you'll put that work ethic to it. But in your story, that wasn't always how it was for you, right? You didn't have that get up and go. So I guess just maybe what changed for you? What gave you that more type A personality, dare I say?
It's a cool question. I mean, yeah, I mean, look, I've had a bit of a, you know, I've got my background. I went through it last time. You know, never really used to follow the rules as a kid or with school. I wouldn't see things through. I never finished any courses, didn't do this, didn't do that. I guess obviously, I understood as soon as I got told about acceptance commitment therapy, I just got it. Like, as in, I just understood the format of it. Having a therapist, I believe, helps that has obviously had the same experience. And you know, when you're talking to them and they can relate and how they've used the skills and been repetitive with it and how it's worked. I am a driven person, you know, and I think, you know, I have had a business, like I said, I've run business from the age of 20. Obviously, things have changed in the last 5 months and stuff, but I have always been driven to a goal. So in my adult life, you know, if I see a goal, I'll do whatever it takes to get there. So I am, as an adult, I am very driven. You know, I want to be the best parent I can be. If I go to the gym, you know, I've got a bit of a reputation to the gym for being a bit of a, I don't just pump weights. I do like a lot of endurance things. I've just completed a high rocks the weekend. So I've got a bit of a reputation for being a bit of like the, I don't know, a bit of a, like someone who works hard in the class, right? And that is about mindset. So I have got a driven mindset. If I see something that can work, I'm going to action it. You know, there's no point if someone's giving you instructions manuals to something. They said, this is an instruction manual for whatever that is in life, how to put a cabinet together or whatever, and you don't follow that, it might not work, right? So if you've got given some tools to say, well, actually, if you follow these tools, these do help, you know, on your recovery journey. It makes sense to follow those rules, right? And all that, you know, the skills rather, not rules. But yeah, I am driven, and I think it's important. When I spoke at the event, people come up to me after, and I just want to make it more important to people is that we're all different human beings, right? You know, me and you might be somewhere, and someone explains something, you might get it, but I might not get it, and vice versa. And that was almost the same as me when I was at school. There's 30 kids in a class, one teacher. Sometimes I wouldn't be able to absorb that information. I didn't understand that information, so then I used to mess about. We're all, you know, so we're all different. We all do things in different ways. But I understand ACT. I understand how these work. I've wanted to put them into action. I've used it as well. I've excited about, okay, if I do this, you know, to see the difference. So yeah, I think I've gone off track a bit there, but I am driven, and I think that we're all different, but anybody can do this, right? And in the group where we have a monthly call, and there's people from the OCD camp 22. There's a couple of people which Johnny's their therapist, right? And I could see, like, even last year, people saying that, oh, you're doing really well, Jack, etc., etc. And they weren't getting it. But now I've spoken to them last month, and you can see that it's taken a little bit longer, but the way they're speaking to me and in the group and the things they're actioning, they finally are getting it and they're actioning things, and it's better in their life. And it was really nice and refreshing to see and say, look, I can hear by the way you're speaking and the things that you're doing, actually, it's that. And the tools you've been given are now working for you too. And, we're all different, right?
Yeah.
And we all get things at different times.
That's it. Yeah. Different timelines. Absolutely. That's an important message because, I want this to be a really empowering episode for people, that everyone has their own timeline. But it's, just trying to get as close to consistency, and that isn't always going to work. Right. And well, it's not always going to work that simply. It will work eventually. But as Johnny says, one of his sayings is like slip and recommit. Well, I don't know if it's his, it might be someone else's, but he always says it, slip and recommit. That's a compassionate message. It's okay if you slip up, just recommit. So for anyone listening and for you personally, I'm sure you've slipped up, and when you have, how have you found recommitting? Was that easy? Was that,
Yeah, I'm glad you've asked that question because it was just in the back of my mind, to be honest. This hasn't been, this is the goal for me to be, like, it's got there. There's been many times where I felt like it isn't working, and that, that could be stresses of life for making things harder, or, when I'm talking about urge shoving and going over a threshold, there has been times where, OCD can be sneaky and it can find a way, and you've gone and done that. And you do beat yourself up originally, it's like, oh no, I'm a failure. I haven't done this right. I've given in, etc. But what you got to do is, like you say, you got to be more compassionate with yourself and go, to know what, I'm a human. This is recovery. I'm not perfect. Actually, to have a sleepless amount of time and to do what I've been doing it's been tough, and to get through it is tough. But I'm doing really well. I've slipped up, and what I've done is every time I've actually spoken about it in my next therapy session, so I can talk about it, how I went wrong, what made me slip up, and obviously being very compassionate with myself, but then learning from it. So then actually next time the same thing comes up, you kind of know how to use your skill for that. So it's almost just like you use your skill for doing in the moment, but then start using your skill for slipping up as well. Okay. I can diffuse from that, don't be harsh on yourself, call yourself names, and be compassionate with yourself, and use each one as a learning curve. I've always found that actually you learn from it, and then next time you can go a little bit deeper and more towards the OCD and recovery skills.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I spoke to Johnny last night actually, and I asked him if he had any questions, and one he kind of said was, how do you find it when things are going well? Because as humans, when things go well, we stop our eating healthy, or we, whatever it is, because things are going good. I'll take a day off. And obviously it's good to take days off sometimes, but when things are going really well for you, maybe OCD is really subdued or non-existent or whatever it is, are you consistent, or are there times you really take your foot, I don't need to do this anymore? And I've definitely been there where I, stopped.
No, and to be fair, this is where the values-based exposure comes in again, because things can be great. You can be going to therapy for a couple of sessions, and like say you're in a good place. But then this is where you need to practice your skills and more as such, because okay, I've had no intrusive thoughts. I haven't had any intrusive thoughts about my kids or guys or anything like that. And then doing a values-based exposure where you purposely bring those images on purpose in a time where you're feeling okay. You don't want to. You spent your whole life trying to avoid that. So when you're feeling great, not having them, to go and then purposely do it with a values-based exposure, it's felt a bit alien to me to start with. But then the purpose as it is that actually life can be great, but then also you can just come back right in an intrusive form. It's about knowing how to deal with your OCD in the difficult times, but also knowing how to deal with your OCD when life's great, but then you have a sudden spike. So I've continued with my skills during the good times as well, to be honest.
Good.
The way I see it, I'm just deepening them and almost see it as like how deep can I go? Keep going deeper with acceptance and deeper with acceptance and deeper with acceptance and with the skills. So yeah, I'll keep practicing because you're just strengthening that new pathway in your mind, right? Even in the good times. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I like that. And is there anything else you want to say on this topic, like generally?
I think the only thing I didn't mention was just workability. I think workability for me is been quite a strong one, and it normally comes after the urge surfing. So workability, it's about talking to yourself and go, okay, well, look, I've been doing this. I've got the urge to go back and do a compulsion. You've got all these things going through your mind. Your OCD's arguing to go and put it back. Your anxiety is high, but then the workability is, well, actually, I've been doing this now for 30 years, been doing the same thing, and I'm getting the same results. I'm still doing loads of compulsions. I'm still doing loads of OCD. It's still ruining my life. So it's not working. So the workability says to me that if I surf the urge to go back and put this compulsion right and continue on with my day, then the workability is that actually it's a better life to go forward in my values rather than keep doing this OCD. So workability has been a big one, and I think it fits in nicely with all the tools that I've been given. When you put them all together out in the day, it really helps strengthen the recovery.
Yeah, I like that. And then, so last question then from me, bit of a different one. At the end of your days, hopefully that's, in another 100 years, anyone that can't see Jack's face, but whenever you decide, hopefully it's a long, happy, healthy life. But at the end, what do you want written on your gravestone if you have one? What do you want it to say? You had a message you could choose.
Wow.
About you.
That is a question. You stumped me out, yeah. I was expecting the other question about the billboard, and I had that one.
Well, I asked it too recently, didn't I?
I just wanted to say that I was kind and caring and a good human being. I don't know, that sounds something simple, but I think the world needs a lot of kindness in it, and I think you need to be kind to yourself. And I think OCD, you sabotage yourself, and it can be quite brutal towards yourself, like mine OCD has been anyway. So I just wanted to say that I was a kind, caring, and good human being.
Yeah, nice. I like it. Kind, caring, good human being to self and others.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, nice. All right, awesome. Well, Jack, thank you so much for coming on, talking about this topic. Really interesting to get this more in-depth insight to this aspect of your story. So thank you.
No, thank you for having me on.
Thank you for listening to this week's podcast. And thank you to our Patreons who helped make this episode possible. And if you would like to find out more about Patreon and the rewards and benefits, then there will be a link in the episode description. If you enjoy the OCD Stories podcast and would like to support us, please subscribe and rate the show wherever you listen to the podcast. And thank you to NoCD for supporting our work. If you want to find out more about NoCD, head to go.treatmyocd.com/the OCD Stories or click the link in the episode description. And quick disclaimer, guys, this podcast is not therapy. It is not a replacement for therapy. Please seek treatment from a trained professional. And until we speak, take care.